Just want to get everyone's attention. Okay, so every day we're being lied to about AI by some of the most influential and who are supposed to be some of the most trusted people in the industry. We see it all the time. A writer trying to get more views, or a YouTuber on some kind of video, they want clicks. AI company's CEO wants to get into the news, so they say something completely outrageous. There's a lot of headlines out there, and the internet has no shortage of these. A lot of people that either have no clue what they're talking about or have some ulterior motive. And you ever notice that anytime someone says something like this, like coding is dead, we're all going to be replaced by AI, is weirdly selling the solution to the problem, right? You create the problem, you sell the solution. And this is why everything that we see on the internet, we have to take with a grain of salt. Like the late and great Abraham Lincoln once said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. So true. So I've had the honor of a lifetime over the past 6 years, teaching tens of thousands of developers, mostly online, and where I used to have an inbox filled with messages about career updates, celebratory messages, questions about technical advice. Now my inbox is filled with questions of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. I don't know what to do. Is it still worth learning this? Am I learning the wrong thing? These messages come from real people with families whose lives are being disrupted. Many have dedicated countless hours, time away from their family, pouring their time into something that they don't know is even going to exist when they finally complete that journey. A lot of people will quit this journey. Some will never even start pursuing something that can change the course of their family's future. This kind of stuff pushes them away. And every time they see a headline like this, it's like a gut punch. And to the people that never start, I get it. Why would you want to go into an industry, do one of the hardest things that you'll have to do in your life? I think anybody here who's been through that process in the early phase understands how difficult this can be. And they just leave it. So I take these headlines personally. Now, AI came with the promise of enhancing our capabilities. It was supposed to make us better, allow us to focus on the things that we're good at, do more. But lately, it's been more of a nightmare to so many. Now, for me personally, I still believe in the promise of AI. I've seen a lot of the good that can come out from it, and I've seen how it can change things. So I'm very hopeful about this. And with this, to combat something like this, I believe the solution is to get educated. To simply know. When you don't understand, when you're starting this journey and you see the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the world say something like, don't learn to code, how is a beginner supposed to deal with that? Or someone that maybe isn't actively out in the field and doesn't know what's going on, how are you supposed to cope with messages like this? So my hope is to maybe provide a little bit of insight. I want to explain how I use it, how I've actually adopted it, and if you haven't even touched it, hopefully see how it's actually implemented, and it's not this robot that's coming after us like a Terminator to come get us. It's not that. It's actually much more tangible. So the first truth is that AI is here to stay. For those of you or anybody here who thinks it's going to go away and you're just burying your head in the sand and you just want it to return back to normal, that's not going to happen. If there's any constant in life, we understand that things will always adapt. We've seen this evolution from the late 90s to where we're at now. Things have always changed. Now, we've had hype cycles where it wasn't exactly what people said it was, but they do change. Now, I also don't believe that this is one of those things where you have to adopt or you're left behind. I don't believe that that's the case because that's too broad of a statement. There are a lot of industries where we have companies that haven't even adopted to 2020 standards. They're still on old tech, legacy code. So to say that everyone has to adopt doesn't make sense. A lot of us are working on code that's old. It also affects every industry differently. But I do want to say this. If you want to work for innovative tech, you want to work at the tech companies that are on the forefront of doing stuff right now, this is probably going to be adapted in one way or another. We use it internally for code reviews. We're creating systems and processes to start using this in our company. I'm seeing it, and I see a lot of people actually adopt it. And beyond the hype, I actually see how it works, and I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to pause right there, actually. So with this, There's also a level that we want to implement AI, and we don't want to adopt everything right away. So for me, I'm also very skeptical about bringing this on board. There's a lot of stuff where we learn throughout the process of building, right? The bugs that we face, the ones that we hate the most, when we have to spend hours thinking that we're going to solve this issue in a couple of minutes, and then we go down these rabbit trails and we have to find all these other solutions to issues we didn't even know we had. By the time we solve that one problem, we learn so much, and later on, those become the biggest blessings in our career. So stuff like that, I'm not willing to offload to AI. I like going through that. So to me, I'm going to adopt it very slowly. And to be safe with that, to not rely on it too much, I've adopted a process. So I'm going to give you 3 levels of which I use here. The first one is the tutor. I think all of us know this mode. This is where AI is now starting to teach us. We use it to search, we look things up, and we're able to speed up the process. We're able to ask questions that are more direct to us. Now we don't have to go to Stack Overflow and hope somebody had the same exact issue 4 years ago, and then when we do see the issue, only to find no one replied to it. It's a little bit annoying. So AI for that has been amazing. Use it as a tutor to help you out. Now, what's one of the problems with AI giving us advice? Anybody? Yes. AI hallucinates, and I've seen it give me some bad examples. It's like a friend who wants to give you the answer, and if they don't know it, they're just going to answer very confidently, and it's going to sound real. Exactly. How to make cheese stick to pizza. I don't know if this is true or not, but this went viral. And allegedly, the response was add 1/8 of a cup of non-toxic glue and mix it for tackiness. We got to be careful for this. It's up to us to know how much we trust it. So when I say use it, you obviously have to be mature enough to know how to adopt it and not trust it like an all-knowing being, because the more you use it, the more you realize it kind of doesn't know what it's talking about. It's good at summarizing, it's good at collecting information, but we can't go all the way. Now, level 2, tab complete. This was something that I only started using about 8 months ago. I never adopted Copilot. I thought it was like autocomplete in your email, where you start writing and it tries to complete the sentence. I didn't like that because half the time I didn't like the way it would format it. I talk a certain way and I like that to be expressed in my emails. So I pushed this off, and then my boss one day messaged me and he says, Dennis, have you tried Cursor before? I said, no. He says, Dennis, there's life before Cursor and there's life after Cursor. So I had to try it, and I was hooked like that. Tab Complete was so much more than just autocomplete. It knows your code base. It's actually very smart. And it worked, and again, speed and productivity. It enhanced my life, things that I've done 1,000 times, writing my API endpoints, stuff that I'm willing to offload. I was able to use Cursor, but there was another issue with this. I was able to use Tab Complete. But the problem with this was that I found myself more likely to hit Tab when I'm coding than to actually review my code. See, in the beginning, I didn't trust it. I'm very skeptical. I'm one of those old adopter, or not an early adopter, I guess that's probably the better way to say it. So I don't trust it. So every time I would write code, I would review it, and then I found myself getting lazy. I would just hit tab, 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 and then I got into code bases that I wasn't so familiar with, or I was working on a feature that I haven't created before, and I found myself hitting tab, not knowing it. Then when it wouldn't give me the answer that I wanted, I would get irritated. See, I was used to getting a bug in my code, getting a cup of coffee, cracking my knuckles, and figuring this out, and using this as a learning opportunity. And I found myself getting irritable and not wanting to do that anymore. So my solution to this was to turn it off anytime I face that. If it's code that I need to know, if it's not something that I'm building for a demo, I'm trying to crank out, I have to turn that off and I take off the training wheels. It can get dangerous. Now, level 3, this is agent mode. This is what you see all the controversy about. This is where AI is actually writing our code for us. And this to me is one of the more exciting parts, but there are two sides to this in my eyes. There's the vibe coding part, which I believe is being misinterpreted, and everyone has their own idea of what vibe coding is. And then there's coding with AI. With, that's the keyword. Agentic coding, whatever we call it. I don't know what the official term is. Now, vibe coding is where we are, by official definitions, because I know people will say coding with AI, they just use vibe coding interchangeably, but it's giving into the vibes, embracing exponentials, and forgetting the code even exists. There is actually a place for this. I've used this before. For me, it's in building prototypes, building demos, testing features. I've spent weekends before trying to build an idea, only to set up all the boilerplate, and then to find out it's not really that good of an idea, and I throw it away and I waste time. For this, I build quite a bit now. It's a lot of fun. You're able to crank those out, and I think it's amazing. It's amazing for internal tools. I built myself a read time calculator. I have to test the time of my speeches. I want to make sure it's within a certain time. There are some online, but I like it to read back to me. So I built myself a read time calculator with a couple of prompts, added in Voice AI, and I have it read back to me. Internal tools like that, things that you aren't pushing out to the world, I think it's amazing for that as well. Now, there are going to be some cases where people will create something cool, but this is not what the future is, and it's not what's going to make you a billion-dollar app. If somebody wants to argue with me after, we can talk about that, but anybody that actually codes understands the limitations of this. The more you give it, the dumber it gets. You're not going to have non-developers replacing developers. I'm sorry. That's not the case. Now, the other side of this is coding with AI, and I didn't plan this out because I have an echo here. Let's see if I can stand here. Coding with AI is where we embrace it. Is there a bad echo? No, pretty good, okay. This is where we are using AI as a normal developer, but now we have an agent. This is our cursor interface. Every interface is going to look a little bit different. So in here, we have our code, we have our files, I put them on the right. We can use the agent to help us out. Now, how people start is typically by prompting the agent, and there's issues with this. And I think that's how we normally adapt it, because you're just new to this interface and you just want to get started. This method has a lot of downsides to it, because when you're prompting an agent and you're not giving it accurate instructions, it has limits and it goes off the rails. It's hard to document what you've done, what you're about to do. It's hard to track changes, and it's limited. And I see an issue with this when it comes to companies adopting this in big orgs, where you have to always have a track record. Everything has to be set and structured. I think it's limited to that. Where I do see people adopting it is in creating good processes. Now, for me, I did some research and I wanted to see how companies are actually using this. And I saw a couple of processes that I like, and I saw an example that I wanted to show here that summarizes one of the simplest versions of this. And this isn't adding a new feature. Now, if you're working internally, prompt the agent, do your thing. But typically when you want to add a new feature, what do? In a company, you create a task for it. You create some kind of ticket, a PRD, product requirements document, and this outlines what the feature is going to be. So first, you start with that. So in this system, if I want to tell my agent to build something here, so we're going to do a quick example, I have a create PRD template. So instead of having to prompt my agent to create me a product requirement document, I already have a guideline. Here, I tell it exactly how to create one. I tell it, once you make it, go ahead and create a file called tasks, or a folder called tasks, throw it into the file, and this is where everything is output to. So we're going to use a simple example. I'm going to have to switch between this example and then some code that I have complete, because sometimes it takes a little bit for the agent to do this. So we're just going to go into my files, and I'm going to go to the create PRD template. And we'll just say, build me a simple contact form, no backend. So we reference the PRD, and it already knows that before it's going to do this, before it actually starts the process, it's going to use that file, it's going to look into it, and now it's generating that. So it's going to ask me a bunch of questions, just like you would on a real team. What design are we using? What are the form fields? What exactly are all the edge cases that we're going to face? And it asks me a bunch of questions. Now, in this case, I don't want to talk to it, so I'm going to say, you do you, boo. And it'll create something. So here, from my create PRD template, this is what the output's going to look like. It's going to give me a folder called tasks, and I have a final PRD. So here we see the goal summarized, a full overview of what's happening, all the details we want to add to it, and so on. So if I like it, it looks good, we go ahead and approve it to the next step. So we're creating a slower process, but one that can be repeated. Let's see how long this takes. Okay, so while it's doing that, in the next step, what do? We have the PRD. Now we want to create an execution plan. We want to go ahead and put this into action. So for this, I have a generate tasks file here. And here, we're going to take the PRD and we're going to create a set of tasks and execution plan based on that. Again, I don't have to create this from scratch. I reference this. Here it knows once the PRD is provided, now create a tasks dash and then the feature name, and also output this here. And we tell it, okay, we want to create tasks, we want to create checkboxes. Do not allow a user to proceed with the next task until one is done. If everything works well, we can move on to the next step. So how to implement this? Go here. So it looks like it created that. Now that was a demo. It's almost done. There we go. Okay. So now we have our PRD. This is the one we just created. We'll accept all. See, this is much better than blindly accepting it and trusting it to figure things out. Now I can see if it made a mistake, if it didn't understand me, I can see it in the PRD right here. So we're just going to tag the PRD here. So that's in, actually we're going to do generate tasks, files and folders, generate tasks, and we'll just say create a task list. And we're going to go ahead and grab our PRD here. We're saying use this template to generate a task list from this PRD. And we go through the same process. Now, again, it's going to take some time, so I have the complete version. It's going to generate something like this. I see all the files it's going to create. I can call it out when it's run. I can see the exact tasks that it's going to follow in order to complete this. So once this is done, I have another template called process task list. And this right here tells it to follow the task list line, or the task list folder. So you notice we're stacking it on top of each other. So now we're referencing the list of tasks, and we're saying, go ahead and do this. Here I give it a list of commands it can run, all the rules it has, don't move on to the next one until I review it, and so on. So these templates right here allow me to create this process. And this is how I've seen bigger companies start adopting it. Now I've seen systems that are much more complex than this. I've seen these files just for the front end, just for their APIs, and then with them a set of rules for design. How do you know what the AI is going to create when it comes to your buttons, cards you want to create on your website? You can have these systems in place and plug those in simply by tagging them. This is what I see as the future of AI development. I don't see it as vibe coding. I see it as using this as a tool and properly implementing it. Now, I want to end with a few things here. First of all, for any junior devs, anybody that's just learning or getting started, your job might be affected in a few ways, but the task of learning to code, it does not change. That's one thing I want to make clear. This isn't going to be a future where people are going to come in and just prompt and build stuff. No one's going to trust you to review these documents. No one's going to trust you to write code if you don't know how to do it. So that's the first thing, is continue on that path. Learn the basics. Don't over-rely. Maybe level 1 where you're using AI to search or do research, that's great. But that doesn't change. How you implement it, now this is going to be interesting. My personal opinion, I was just dogging on people that have opinions publicly. I'm a talking head as well here now. I think people are going to adopt this by having juniors more capable. I think juniors will be watching these reviews, implementing these, and I think we're leveling up. I think the junior is going to be much more flexible and in charge of more. There's no such thing as a junior role going away. At some point, someone has to start from the beginning, right? We can't just outgrow and then have no developers. So the way that you're going to be involved in this task is going to change. Internally, at my company, AppWrite, we use CodeRabbit for code reviews. Whether someone comes in as a junior, senior, or mid-level developer, they now have to know about these tools just like you have to know about GitHub. There's a lot of tools that you onboard with, and you have to start implementing them. So that's how I'm seeing AI integrated into the workforce. Now, as far as the future developer, we've seen some history go by already with frameworks being adopted, development going from hand coding everything to no-code tools, and every single time it seemed like we were done. Yet when the low-code and no-code movement came around, it only added more developers. It democratized the industry. Now an author can create a website. A mother crocheting some stuff at home can now create an e-commerce store and sell. Anybody can access this. And yet it didn't affect us. We simply changed what we're building and the tools that we're working on. And this is what I'm seeing as the future of development here. With AI, I think the developer is now a Swiss Army knife. We now have more capability in our hands than any developer from the early 90s, the best developers that you've seen. They're probably still better than us because they don't have to rely on these tools, but we can do more when it comes to actually implementing them. They didn't have half of these resources. And that's what I think we're going to be doing. You're going to see smaller companies with smaller teams, micro SaaS developers making a lot of money with teams of 1, 2, 3, 4, reaching millions, where historically that would have taken so long to do. We've seen low code do this already, and I think we're reducing team size. So you think less developers, right? No, I think we're going to have more companies. More ideas are going to be built out, and that just basically spreads the field out. It's given us more power, and I think it's only adding more. And that's my take on AI development and what the future is going to look like. Thank you all. We still have time. Anyone want to ask questions? We still got time. I thought I was going to be short. I tried to rush that. No? Hermes? Yeah. Yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, I should have added this. I can post it. So I'll make sure it's posted and I'll tag it on my Twitter. I'm at Dennis IVY11. So this is the template that I actually used was from Ryan Carson, I believe. I believe he was originally the founder of Treehouse. And I actually used his template, and it was the simplest one that I've seen, the 3-step template. Yeah, I'll make sure I post that, and I'll tag him too to give him credit.
Where do you put the foundation, like for front end and also API, back end? Because these 3 steps are clear, but you still need to know about how this feature was implemented before, so that it can add one more feature to this. So where do you?
So I've seen people create a completely different folder for that, and they'll layer it just like their application. So when where you have your front end and your back end, let's say if they're in the same file structure or 2 separate folders, they will basically replicate their entire application structure with files like that. So you would have a template just for front end implementation, just for styles and for each part of that code.
So when you run PRT, let's say,
you need to tag the right folder. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Usually it starts knowing where you're at pretty well, but yeah, you're just tagging that because there are design systems that you want to use that are just relevant to front end, right? So that's a really good question. Yeah, the way I've seen it is literally creating a copy of what you actually have and then referencing all that.
Which models have you seen performing better in planning versus like actual code execution?
I'm using
Sonnet Max.
Yeah, I just kind of leave that. Well, I use Sonnet for this. I did Sonnet Max to hopefully, make it a little bit better. But that's what I've been sticking to. I'm actually Grok. I have not tried it actually. Yeah.
And OpenAI for planning.
Really. I'm still in that research phase of trying to go into that, and I think, by the way, that's actually a really good thing as far as like where people should be adopting. I think it's knowing what models do what models are good at coding, what models are good at reasoning, writing, and so on. I think that's going to be very beneficial for the future.
You said you were doing read time. You created a read time calculator, and it reads back to you. What does that mean?
So it's a read time calculator. So it basically takes the characters in let's say this speech was written out, right? I would paste in the text, and it tells me based on how a human talks, like the average speed of me speaking or reading. It tells me how long the speech will take. But I often like to hear my own words written out. I don't know if I'm dyslexic, but I have a hard time actually reading long strings of text. So I just listen back to it. So I use 11 Labs to get a voice AI agent to read what I wrote, and then I can listen to my speech and say, yeah, that sounds good, or it doesn't.
And you still repeat it.
I don't repeat it. I just know, okay, if I didn't like what it said or it sounded off, I just rewrite it and then play it again and listen to it. I do this with emails too, by the way. It's not that I'm bad at spelling. I just I'll repeat words or something like that. My eyes get lazy when I look at the screen. So before I send an email, I copy it, paste it, listen to it. Sounds good. I send it. Yeah. So it helps me with that. But small project, I've been doing a lot of stuff like that though. Yeah. But it would have taken a weekend to build, maybe a couple hours, but it was about 15 minutes of prompting, and I deployed it and I use it internally. All right. Yeah. CodeRabbit is one, just for code reviews. Yeah, CodeRabbit. Yeah. We use it. It's integrated. There's a lot of different integrations with it, but right now we use it internally with GitHub. So we don't allow it. It basically is like the first step in PR review. So that way, it hooks into it. Yeah, just the automatic deployment process. It helps flag those things that a developer would have to look through multiple times on their own. Just helps make that quicker, and it's really good actually.